My name is Alina Carter. I'm 27 years old and I live in Seattle, Washington. Before we begin, I'm curious, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Let me know in the comments below. I had already made peace with the idea that love just wasn't meant for me, not in the way people talk about it. Not in the way it looks in movies or the way my friends describe it with that soft smile in their eyes. If I'm being honest, I stopped believing in love long before I turned 25. And the strange part is, it wasn't because of one big heartbreak, it was 100 small ones. Seattle has a way of making everything feel heavier when it rains, and it rains a lot. That evening was no different. The sky was a dull shade of gray, like someone had drained all the color out of it. I was sitting by the window in my favorite cafe, the one with the chipped wooden tables and the quiet jazz music that always felt a little too nostalgic. The kind of place couples go to talk about their future. I used to come here with someone once, Ethan. I didn't realize how much his absence would linger in places like this. We weren't perfect. Not even close, but I thought we were real. Until one day, he just wasn't there anymore. No dramatic goodbye, no explanation that made sense, just silence. Have you ever been left without closure? It's like your mind keeps replaying moments, trying to find something you missed, something you could have fixed. I used to think maybe if I had said the right thing or stayed a little longer that night, things would have been different. Looking back now, I know better. Some people don't leave because of something you did. They leave because they were never meant to stay. I wrapped my fingers around my coffee cup, letting the warmth settle into my palms. Outside, people rushed past with umbrellas, their lives moving forward while mine felt paused, stuck in a moment I couldn't quite escape. I told myself I was okay, that I didn't need anyone. That being alone was peaceful, safe, but deep down there was this quiet ache I couldn't ignore, the kind that shows up when you least expect it. Like when you see someone laughing with the person they love, or when your phone stays silent for hours and you pretend it doesn't bother you. That's when I noticed him. He walked into the cafe like he didn't belong to the rain. No umbrella, just slightly damp hair and a calm expression like the storm had nothing on him. I don't know why I looked twice. Maybe it was the way he paused near the entrance, scanning the room like he was searching for something, or someone. He wasn't overly dressed up, just a dark coat, simple jeans, nothing extraordinary. But there was something about him, something steady, grounded, like he wasn't trying to impress anyone. He ordered his coffee, then turned, and for a brief second our eyes met. I looked away immediately. Of course I did, I always do. If I'm being honest, I didn't think he'd notice me. People rarely do. A few minutes passed and I tried to go back to my thoughts, to my quiet little world where nothing changes and no one stays long enough to matter. But something felt different. I couldn't explain it, and then, "Hey, is the seat taken?" I looked up. It was him, standing right beside my table. Close enough that I could see the faint lines of exhaustion in his eyes, but also something softer beneath it, something warm. I hesitated. Why would he want to sit here? There were other empty tables, plenty of them. "No, it's not," I said, my voice quieter than I expected. He smiled, just a small one, but it was enough to shift something inside me. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. "Hope, thanks," he said, sitting across from me like it was the most natural thing in the world. We didn't talk right away. There was just silence. Not awkward, not forced, just two strangers sharing a moment neither of them fully understood. I kept my eyes on my cup, pretending to be interested in the fading foam on top. But I could feel his presence. "Steady, calm, real, rough day?" he asked after a while. I let out a soft breath. "You could say that," he nodded like he understood more than I had said. Yeah, those days seemed to come uninvited. There was something in the way he said it, like he had his own story, his own quiet battles. We talked a little after that, nothing too deep. Just small things, weather, work, the kind of conversations that don't mean much, but somehow feel important in the moment. I learned his name was Daniel, that he had just moved to the city. That he didn't know many people yet. "I guess that makes two of us," I said with a small laugh, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel completely alone. Time passed faster than I expected. The rain slowed outside. The cafe lights grew warmer as evening turned into night, and somewhere between those quiet moments, something shifted inside me. Something I wasn't ready to admit. As he stood up to leave, he hesitated, like he wanted to say something but wasn't sure if he should. "Hey, Alina," he said softly. "Yeah," he smiled again. That same gentle smile. "I'm glad I sat here." I felt my heart skip just slightly, just enough to remind me it was still there, still capable of feeling something. "Me too," I said. And I meant it more than I expected. He nodded, then turned and walked away, just like that. No number exchange, no let's meet again, nothing. And somehow that made it even more real. More fragile, like something beautiful that wasn't meant to last. I watched him leave through the glass window, disappearing into the damp Seattle night, and for a moment I thought that was it. Just another brief encounter, another almost, another story that starts and ends in the same breath. But I was wrong, because what I didn't know then was that this wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. And the next time I saw Daniel, everything I thought I had healed was about to come rushing back. I didn't expect to see him again. Not because I didn't want to, but because moments like that rarely repeat themselves. If I'm being honest, I had already placed him in that quiet corner of my mind reserved for what ifs. You know the ones. The almost connections, the strangers who feel familiar for no reason, the people you meet once and somehow remember longer than you should. The next morning felt like any other, gray skies. Soft rain tapping against my window, Seattle doing what Seattle does best. I got ready for work on autopilot, black coat, tied back hair, coffee in a travel mug I barely tasted. I worked at a small publishing office downtown, nothing glamorous. Just editing manuscripts, fixing sentences that didn't quite land, helping other people tell their stories while mine stayed unfinished. Funny how that works. I told myself I had already forgotten about him. Daniel, just a name now, nothing more. But then, hey, Alina, you okay? I blinked, realizing I had been staring at the same paragraph on my screen for 5 minutes. It was Mia, my coworker, bright energy, always smiling. The kind of person who still believed in love without hesitation. Yeah, I said quickly, just didn't sleep well. She tilted her head, studying me like she didn't quite believe that. You've been off lately, she said. Did something happen? I shook my head. No, nothing happened, and that was the truth, that was the problem. The day dragged on longer than usual, emails. Edits, deadlines, but my mind kept drifting back to that cafe, back to that quiet conversation, back to that smile. By the time evening came, I felt restless. Like staying home would only make the silence louder, so without overthinking it, I found myself walking down the same street again, past the same bookstore, the same flickering street lamp. Toward the same cafe. I don't even know why I went back. Maybe I was hoping. No, I told myself I wasn't hoping for anything. The bell above the cafe door rang softly as I stepped inside. Same music, same warm lighting, same quiet hum of conversations, and for a moment I felt ridiculous. Of course he wouldn't be here. What were the chances? I ordered my usual and took a seat by the window, the same one from yesterday. It felt familiar, almost comforting, but also a little empty. Minutes passed, then more. I pulled out my phone, pretending to scroll, pretending I wasn't occasionally glancing at the door. Have you ever waited for something you told yourself you didn't care about? It's exhausting. I sighed softly, wrapping my hands around my cup. This was a bad idea, I whispered to myself, and just as I was about to stand up, the bell rang again. I froze. I didn't want to look. Because if it wasn't him, I'd feel stupid, and if it was, I didn't know what I'd feel. Looks like we had the same idea. My heart stopped. I looked up slowly, Daniel standing there. Slightly out of breath this time, like he had rushed, and smiling that same smile. I let out a quiet laugh, shaking my head. Okay, this is weird. A little, he admitted, stepping closer. But not in a bad way. There it was again, that calm presence, like nothing about this surprised him, like he had expected it. Can I? He gestured toward the chair. I nodded. Yeah, of course. This time the silence didn't last as long. We started talking almost immediately, and somehow it felt easier, more natural, like we were picking up where we left off. I almost didn't come, I admitted after a while. Really? He asked. Yeah, I told myself it didn't mean anything. He leaned back slightly, studying me, and now, I hesitated now. Now it felt like something I couldn't explain, something I didn't want to overthink, but also couldn't ignore. I'm not sure, I said honestly. He nodded like he respected that answer. I almost didn't come either, he said. That surprised me. You did, he shook his head. I didn't think I'd see you again. There was something in his voice when he said that, something real. Then why did you come? I asked. He smiled, but this time it was softer, less certain. I guess I hoped I was wrong. That moment, I'll never forget it. Because for the first time in a long time, someone chose to come back, not out of obligation, not out of convenience, but because they wanted to. We stayed longer that evening, much longer. The cafe slowly emptied around us, chairs stacking, lights dimming slightly, but neither of us seemed to notice. We talked about everything, childhood memories, favorite places. The things we used to believe in, the things we stopped believing in. and somewhere in between, the walls I had built so carefully over the years started to crack just a little. If I'm being honest, I said quietly, tracing the rim of my cup, I'm not really good at this. At what? He asked. This connection thing. He didn't laugh, didn't brush it off. I don't think anyone really is, he said. We just pretend we are. I looked at him then, really looked at him, and for the first time I wondered what he wasn't saying. What he was holding back is because people like him, calm, grounded, easy to talk to, they usually have stories too, the kind they don't tell right away. What about you? I asked softly. Are you good at this? He hesitated, just for a second, but I saw it. I used to think I was, he said, but I was wrong. There it was, a crack, small but real. What happened? I asked before I could stop myself. He looked down at his hands, and for the first time since I met him, that calmness shifted, just slightly. Something I don't usually talk about, he said, and suddenly the air between us changed. I felt it, that shift from something light to something deeper, something heavier. I'm sorry, I said quickly. You don't have to. No, he interrupted gently. It's okay. But his voice said otherwise, and in that moment I realized something. This wasn't just a coincidence anymore. This wasn't just two strangers meeting twice. There was something here, something real, but also something complicated. Because whatever Daniel wasn't saying, it mattered, more than I understood, more than I was ready for, and as he finally looked up at me again, there was a question in his eyes, unspoken. Careful, almost like he was deciding whether to let me in or walk away before things got too real. And I didn't know which one scared me more. The days that followed were strange. Daniel and I didn't see each other every day, but when we did, it was like the rest of the world blurred out. Even now, thinking about it, I can feel that quiet tension, the mix of excitement and fear that neither of us knew how to handle. If I'm being honest, I was terrified. Because the truth was, I had almost given up on love, completely. And here he was, smiling, talking, making me feel something I hadn't felt in years. It happened on a Thursday evening. I had just finished work and was walking through the little park near my apartment. Rain had stopped, but the air was heavy with that wet, earthy scent Seattle is famous for. I was thinking about the stack of papers waiting for me at home, about the emails I still hadn't answered, and about the tiny, stubborn hope growing in my chest. That hope was him. And there he was, sitting on the same park bench where we had once met by chance a week ago. Noticing me immediately, he waved, that small, familiar smile on his face. Hey, he said, standing as I approached. Hey, I replied, my voice quieter than I intended. We didn't sit immediately. We walked a little, letting the silence stretch, letting the tension build. Then he stopped and turned to me. Alina, can I tell you something? Of course, I said. His eyes flicked away for a second, then back to me. I didn't come back just because I wanted to see you again, he said slowly. I came back because I realized I might have been running from something, from feelings I didn't want to face. But I can't anymore. I felt my chest tighten because I knew exactly what he meant. We both had ghosts, old wounds, fears that whispered, don't let anyone in, it'll only hurt. I started, but my words trailed off, and I realized I couldn't hide it anymore. I felt the same, I admitted. For years, I told myself love wasn't for me, that it would only break me. But then you smiled at me. That smile, it changed something inside me. I didn't think someone could make me feel this way again. He reached out slowly, hesitated, then brushed a wet strand of hair from my face. The contact was electric, though subtle. Have you ever felt like everything was about to change? He asked softly. Yes, I whispered, because I think it is, he said. We sat down on the bench together, shoulders barely touching, hearts pounding in silence. The city around us faded. The noise of traffic, the distant laughter of strangers, none of it mattered. All that mattered was him and me and the fragile, terrifying hope blooming between us. And then it happened. A sudden gust of wind knocked over a small trash bin nearby, startling a passerby, and we both laughed. It was small, silly, but in that laughter something shifted. Because the tension, the fear, the walls we had built so carefully, they started to crumble. Can I be honest? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Always, he said, turning to me. I'm scared, I admitted. I'm scared because I've been hurt before and I almost gave up on love entirely. And now I don't want to lose this. Losing you would hurt more than I thought I could bear. His hand found mine, fingers entwining carefully, almost as if we were both afraid to let go. I know, he said softly. I'm scared too. But maybe we don't have to be afraid. Maybe we just have to try. That moment, I'll never forget it. It was quiet, simple, yet monumental. Because in that small gesture, holding hands in the middle of a damp, empty park, I realized something crucial. love isn't about avoiding pain. It's about daring to feel even when the risk is terrifying. And then he looked at me, his eyes catching the last light of the setting sun. Alina, can I kiss you? My breath caught. It was so simple, so ordinary, yet it felt like the universe had shifted on its axis just for us. Yes, I whispered, barely daring to breathe, and in that moment he smiled, that smile. The one that had changed everything. And when our lips met, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't fiery. It was gentle, careful, full of all the emotions we hadn't dared to say aloud. I didn't want it to end because I finally understood this wasn't just a fleeting moment. This was the beginning of something real, something fragile but beautiful. Something worth risking everything for. But just as my heart began to settle, as I let myself believe that maybe love wasn't lost to me forever, I noticed something in his eyes, a shadow. A hesitation, a secret he hadn't told me yet. And I realized this story wasn't going to be easy, not by a long shot, because love, real love, never comes without complications. And whatever Daniel was hiding, whatever had brought him here to this moment, to me, it was about to change everything. The next few days were complicated. Daniel and I were no longer strangers, but we weren't completely free either. If I'm being honest, I could feel the walls around him. Not all of them, but enough to know he was holding something back. And for some reason, I wasn't sure I wanted to push, because I had learned the hard way that sometimes secrets are heavy and they can break the most fragile connections if revealed too soon. That Saturday, we decided to meet at a little art gallery downtown. I had suggested it because I thought it would be safe, quiet, nothing too personal. But the moment he saw me waiting outside, the way his eyes softened, I knew this wasn't going to be just another casual outing. Hey, he said, brushing the rain from his coat. You look nice, I laughed softly, nervous. Thanks, you look like you know something I don't. He tilted his head. Maybe I do, and just like that, my stomach dropped. Because I had a feeling he did. Inside, the gallery was almost empty. Soft light spilled across paintings that seemed to whisper stories of their own. I walked slowly, taking it all in, trying not to think about the tension between us. But he was there, quietly beside me, speaking just enough to make me smile, and yet holding back just enough to keep me guessing. At some point, he stopped in front of a painting. A small, abstract piece, chaotic splashes of color that somehow made sense together. He looked at it for a long time, then he looked at me. Alina, I need to tell you something, he said, voice low. My heart skipped. I had felt this coming, but I wasn't ready. What is it? I asked softly. He swallowed. It's about why I moved here. My chest tightened. Because moving cities, changing everything about your life, it's not a small thing. And the way he hesitated, I knew it wasn't something simple. He looked away, then back at me. I didn't just move for work, I moved because I had to escape something. I nodded slowly, urging him to continue. I was in a relationship before, a serious one, he admitted. I blinked. I thought I was over it. I thought I could start fresh, but I wasn't ready. And then I met you, he paused, letting the words sink in. My mind was spinning. I had felt this coming, yet hearing it aloud, it hurt in a way I hadn't expected. I don't know what to say, I whispered. He shook his head, almost apologetic. You don't have to say anything. I didn't want to lie to you, not now, not ever. I felt a lump in my throat because part of me wanted to step back, run even. But another part, the part that had almost given up on love, didn't want to. It was that part that remembered his smile, that remembered the warmth in his presence. That whispered, maybe this is worth it. I swallowed and took a shaky breath. Thank you for telling me, I said softly. I appreciate it. I really do, he nodded, but there was sadness in his eyes. I don't want this to ruin what we have, he said quietly. It won't, I promised. I just need time and honesty. That's all I need. And for a moment, it felt like we could breathe again, like we could start over cautiously. But just as I let myself relax, a sound from the other side of the gallery made both of us tense, a familiar laugh, and then a figure stepped into view, the person from his past. The one he had tried to escape. My heart dropped because now the choice wasn't just about feelings anymore. It was about trust, about loyalty. About whether love could survive secrets or whether it would shatter under the weight of them. Daniel turned to me, eyes wide. Alina, I didn't expect she's here. I nodded, trying to steady my breathing. She, I asked, voice quieter than I intended. Yes, he whispered. She came to find me. And in that instant, everything changed. The fragile hope I had been holding onto suddenly felt like it could slip through my fingers. I looked at him, searching his face for answers, for reassurance, for anything. and he looked back at me, conflicted, torn, and so undeniably human. I realized then love isn't just about moments of joy. It's about the storms you face together, the choices you make, the risks you're willing to take. Because sometimes the person you almost lose is the one worth fighting for. I didn't know what the next moment would bring. Would he turn away? Would I? Would everything we had just started disappear before it even truly began? I reached for his hand, he took it, and for just a heartbeat, I believed that maybe love could survive anything. But the storm wasn't over, and I had no idea what would happen next. The gallery felt smaller somehow, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Her presence, the woman from his past, hung in the air like an unspoken question. Daniel's hand was still in mine, but the weight between us was suddenly heavier. I could feel it pressing against my chest, making it hard to breathe, hard to think, hard to hope. I need to talk to her, Daniel said quietly. My stomach sank. Every instinct in me told me to step back, let him go, protect my heart, but another, quieter voice whispered, no, stay, trust him. I nodded, forcing a calm I didn't feel. Go, I said. I'll be right here, and with that he walked toward her, his steps hesitant but determined. I watched them speak, their voices low, almost intimate in a way I didn't understand. I didn't hear the words, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the flicker of something unresolved, something that belonged to a time before me. My mind raced. I felt the familiar ache of doubt creeping in, the one that had nearly convinced me to give up on love entirely. Maybe this was too soon. Maybe I was too late. Maybe he would leave and I'd lose him before I even got the chance to hold him. But then something changed. Daniel's shoulders straightened. He looked back at me. And in that look, everything shifted. The doubt, the fear, the uncertainty gone. He smiled, not the small, polite smile he gave strangers, not the cautious smile he gave at the cafe, but the one that reaches your soul, the one that makes your heart recognize home, the one that says, without words, I choose you. My chest tightened as tears welled in my eyes. Because in that moment, I realized something I hadn't dared to believe in a long time. Love isn't about the perfect timing. It isn't about the absence of fear. It's about showing up. Every single time, even when it's messy, even when it's complicated, even when you're scared. Daniel returned to me. He didn't say a word. He simply sat down, took my hand in both of his, and held it as if he would never let go. I looked at him. He looked at me. And everything I had been holding on to, the pain, the fear, the doubt, melted away in the warmth of that gaze. I'm here, he whispered. I'm not going anywhere, I replied, my voice trembling. And that was all we needed to say. We walked out of the gallery together, stepping into the crisp Seattle night. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the city lights. I felt lighter than I had in years, because in that moment I finally understood love isn't about never being hurt. It's about finding someone worth facing the fear for, someone worth waiting for. Someone whose smile can change your life. Daniel stopped under a street lamp. He looked at me, eyes reflecting the city lights, and smiled. That smile, the one that had started it all, took my breath away. I laughed softly, letting the tears fall freely. I almost gave up on love, I whispered. And then you smiled at me, he replied, brushing a strand of hair from my face. That changed everything, I said. That night, I didn't go home feeling alone. I went home knowing that sometimes the universe gives you one more chance, one more person who makes you believe in hope, one more reason to open your heart even when it's terrifying. And as I drifted off to sleep, I realized something I hadn't in years. Love wasn't gone. It had been waiting just for the right smile, the right person, the right moment. And that moment was Daniel, and that smile changed my life forever. Red.